So the cardinal thing that one has to remember in custody matters is the child needs both the parents.
If you were not a lawyer, knowing how you have always been and how kind and giving and disseminating of knowledge as a person that you have been, either you would have been an extremely successful, academician leading up to maybe a dean of a very large university, or perhaps
In 9 out of 10 cases where the children have been asked, and the courts never asked them, so let me make it very clear to all your viewers here, that the courts never ever asked a child whether you want to be with a father or your mother. That is disservice to the child. My answer is, let there be 2 happy homes for the child. Do not expose the child to that one toxic thing. Any advice given to destroy the other person or the family or whatever it is the abuse of law. But the use of law to get justice and what is fair to you is the proper use.
वेलकम बैक टू द लाइफबोट सीजन 2। आज हम मिलने जा रहे एक ऐसे इंसान से जो सिर्फ एक लॉयर नहीं, एक इंसाफ की मिसाल है। मीट मृणालिनी देशमुख, इंडियाज लीडिंग डिवोर्स अटॉर्नी, जो सिर्फ कानूनी लड़ाइयों के बारे में नहीं बल्कि रिश्तों, इमोशंस और इंसाफ की सच्चाइयों के बारे में भी बात करती है। मृणालिनी's journey is a lesson in resilience and ethical leadership. In this episode, she shares several aspects about divorce law and the misconceptions around it. जब एक रिश्ता टूट रहा हो तो इंसाफ के सही तरीके क्या है? Mediation versus courtroom battle. किस रास्ते पे चलना बेहतर है? How resilience and integrity shape success in law and life. Besides the legal jargon, this is a conversation about real struggles, real people and the real meaning of justice. ये एक इंसान की कहानी है जो कानून को एक ड्यूटी की तरह देखती है, सिर्फ एक प्रोफेशन नहीं। तो चलिए, let's deep dive into this insightful conversation from Mrunalini Deshmukh, only on the LifeBoat. Stories that keep you afloat. So we keep this very natural. Most of the benefit of the podcast is it's not a podcast per se, it's more of a conversation.
It's a chat, yeah.
It's a chat. And even though you are a rock star and you're a friend and whole world would call you as Mrunalini ma'am, I want to call you Mrunalini for this.
Of course, you must.
Pakka?
100%.
Lovely. So it started, the rolling has started. That's how it is, natural.
Yeah.
So, shall we? Lovely. So today I have a very dear friend and perhaps who I would call the queen of marital laws in this country, Mrunalini Deshmukh, who's known as perhaps India's one of the most successful marital and divorce attorneys and someone who's advised the who's who in one of the most complex cases around, and perhaps someone who the fraternity looks at as an extremely senior, extremely successful and extremely empathetic individual, even though the practice area in this country is known not to be that empathetic. So welcome Mrunalini to this wonderful podcast of ours called The Lifeboat.
Thank you so much. And it's such a wonderful, I'm sure I'm going to enjoy this conversation, especially when you are on the other side.
You're too kind. You're too kind. So one of the reasons why I created this podcast was to have successful people like yourself come and talk about failures, come and talk about their journey, come and talk about what they have built and how they have built, to make the audience and the viewers realize that the true essence of success is not what social media shows, but also the entire amount of baptism of fire through these failures that come in. And that's why failures are your true lifeboats. So that's the essence of this particular series. What do you think of this?
I was just going to, but didn't want to interrupt you. It's very interesting. And it's very, how do I put it? It's so important for the younger generation to understand that if somebody wants to achieve success A is not easy. B, there are a lot of potholes and rumblers and sort of speed breakers, as one would call it in the normal way. Thirdly, that every step that one takes is not going to be 100% successful. In fact, you'll have to walk 10 steps of being unsuccessful, not so successful, little successful, to reach that particular goal, which you may call yourself, which may not necessarily be, but which you may call yourself that, okay, I have achieved. I think one thing that I always feel, and Vinayak, you and me are professionals, we are lawyers, we do that, it should never sink in that I have achieved anything.
True.
Because then that's the beginning of your
fall.
you still have to say, oh, really, I think I need to work hard. I need to have more exposure. I need to probably read more. I need to practice more of these things. Only then I can get. So I think for me, just speaking for myself, I don't know. I mean, you have such kind and such lovely words about me, and I'm really overwhelmed with that. But honest to you, and not because we are in this interview or on this podcast, seriously, I really don't think in the same manner. And I think I said that to you when we
Of
had
course.
coffee the other day
Of
also.
course.
And I mean every word that I'm saying.
I know that.
Because I think that's one of the things that I think is necessary for a person to, it's not like this concept of goat and things like that you have.
I think the essence is hunger.
Yeah.
इंसान के अंदर अगर जुनून, शिद्दत और भूख है तो it's always about scratching the surface. No matter where you are, how you are, you feel that अभी तो कुछ भी नहीं हुआ, अभी तो बहुत कुछ बाकी है. There's so much to do.
Yeah.
But let's go back not to the famous, renowned, extremely popular, extremely well-known, extremely feared at times Mrunalini. Let's go back to that young Mrunalini, that little Mrunalini, and your earliest cognizant, imaginative memories that you may have in terms of what shapes an individual. A lot of times, I personally believe the way our childhood is and the way the childhood has always been factored through our examples or instances that we go through, उससे बहुत कुछ एक इंसान का जिंदगी का रूह उस तरीके से बनता है. And that's how my life has been. My childhood has shaped a lot of how I am today. So let's go back to that Mrunalini to take us back to your earliest memories. Because this field that you chose is more of a calling. It's an extremely difficult field to go across and make the mark the way you have. But वो calling कहाँ से आता है? बचपन से ही आता है. How was your childhood? Where were you born? How were the parents? What was your learning as you grew up? What were the learnings that you still hold close to your heart and say that a lot of this shaped me the way I am today?
It's a very interesting thing, and going, jogging down the memory lane so many years back. But I think certain things are very, very crystal clear, and they are sort of etched in my mind. That whatever little I am today is only and only because of the basic value systems that were instilled in me and my siblings as children by my father. So my father, for me, he is not only a biological father, he's a guru, he's a mentor, and he is someone who has been an ideal for me he's no longer there, but for several years. Dr. T.K. Tope. And just to give you a little background about him, he was a constitutional expert. He's written books on Constitution of India. He was closely associated with Dr. Ambedkar. And I'm talking during the times when the Constitution was being drafted. And there were these meetings the Constituent Assembly had. And there were a lot of debates because it's not easy to draft a constitution after independence. And obviously, we did not have something of our own, though we had the Government of India Act of 1935. Then we had to borrow certain things from there. So these were the challenges that the Constituent Assembly was facing. And that was the time my father, being a constitutional professor, a professor of constitutional law at the Government Law College at Churchgate, Mumbai, and absolutely passionate. He would always, he said, I don't want in the courts to have that I swear in the name of Gita, Quran or Bible. You should only have the Constitution because that is the only Bible of the country. So these are the value systems, and when he was doing this, and he has taught us a lot of things. We have seen him interacting. He had the influence of people like Nehru, Gandhi and Ambedkar on him. And very, very, those are the strongest values that I've seen in that generation. So if you ask me what has been one of the influences that I have, it's only been my father. And my father was not someone who spoke about it. It was my father whom we watched and saw, and that's how we learned. So it's not just somebody sitting and preaching, okay, you have to do this, you have to do that. Secondly, and I think which is very, very important, is our conversations at the dinner table as kids. We might be 10, we may be 12 or something, or even, I was born much, much later than the Constitution was framed. But we were told all these stories when we were at the dinner table. 8 p.m. we all have to be whichever part of the world we were. 8 p.m. Washed, cleaned and all at the dinner table. And that dinner lasted for 40 minutes. And that was besides the, exchanging what you did today, what happened, etc. imparting of value systems and knowledge, and imparting of these things what happened by giving us anecdotes. What did Winston Churchill say? Because my father was an avid reader, he read about everything. What did Dr. Ambedkar say when he had gone to him those days to discuss with it? What were the social challenges that were there? And that's where I learned from my dad for the first time. And this is something which I also use in my talks and speeches that I give. My dad said that when they thought of introducing fundamental rights in the Constitution, everybody is saying right to equality, no discrimination on the grounds of gender and race, religion, etc. At that time, the Constituent Assembly was thinking that if you have to make right to equality, Article 14, or no discrimination on the grounds of gender, race, religion, etc., Article 15, really meaningful, especially for the women, it is necessary to raise the standard of the women to have that equality between the two genders. And that equality can only happen because we were in a patriarchal society. It was a struggle for women to really come up and get into
in quite a few parts of the country.
Still more. Still today it also exists. But I'm talking about those days. I'm talking, say, 50 years back, 75 years back. So the same Constitution, Article 15, has Section 3, which says nothing shall stop the state from making special laws for women and children.
Yeah.
So which look like a contradiction. Here you're talking equality, then you're taking. So that's where these things came up, that you need to raise them to be equal, for Article 14 and 15 to be effective and things. So these are the small things. I'm just giving you an example. I mean, this is something that you learn, which you don't study in law books. You don't study anywhere, but you study from people who have experienced this. So these are my memories. So if you ask me, in a way, he was my hero. He continues to be my hero. And obviously, I think it was a natural thing for me after I finished my graduation from the St. Xavier's College, which I did in economics and political science. Law was a natural course of
progression.
Next. Yes, I think so. And that's where we started as studying law, because there was so much of, how do I say, enriching environment at home to make that law, it should be passion.
Yeah.
And that's why, as you rightly said, there's the hunger, it's the passion. It is also something that you love to do it, and not because you do it because you want to, for any other reason. And I'll tell you something, Vinayak, I'm sure you also know that earlier law and lawyers were not looked upon like, kuch hua nahi, ho gaya, lawyer ban gaya.
Yeah.
He could
certain parts of the country still believes if you're the largest nincompoop, you still become a lawyer.
Yeah.
कुछ नहीं हो सकता तब जाके वकील बन जाओ, काला कोट वाला
serious. No, but those it was really there. In fact, I'll tell you it's in a jocular manner, that they used to say that if a girl who's of a marriageable age is a pretty girl, then she gets a doctor. If she is average looking, because those days are all about looks, no? It's not about what was here. Huh? So if she's an average looking, then she'll get an engineer or a chartered accountant. और कुछ भी नहीं है बेचारी को, कुछ ना रूप ना रंग ना कुछ, तो चलो वकील के साथ शादी करो.
True.
So that is how it was, and today of course situation different.
Completely.
I have one of the great lawyers is sitting in front of me,
you're too kind.
and it is something which talks about our profession, and that's what I'm driving home now is the gradual progress and even the status and the dignity that law had. Of course, we had people like Sirvai and Mr. Palkhiwala and Mr. Chimanlal Setalwad, etc., who were stalwarts, or Justice Hidayatullah, etc. But those were the few. But now that the profession has also got that. So to answer your question, that was a natural progression, and the passion was always there.
So the two parts I want to link to. One that I know is, and it also showcases now in your life to a great extent, where you always had the ability to go across and feed into certain passions of yours, which is outside just the profession as well. But I also know that during your college days, you were extremely active in extracurriculars. I personally believe, to a great extent, that extracurriculars to a large amount shapes your character. I say this because a lot of our viewers may be in that age where they are within that realm of passing out, getting into a different zone of building a career, maybe in those final years of their college graduation or post-graduation. And they are always in this dichotomy and dilemma to say that, should I only concentrate on work? Should I only concentrate on study? Should I only concentrate on the numbers and grades? Or should I also look at various other aspects, which perhaps is a division of bandwidth? But I personally believe for you to have a character that is built across 360-degree, extracurriculars shape you to a great extent. Our profession, to a great extent, is about articulation, personal presence, presence of the mind, a lot of reading that has to be done. But along with that, a lot of other attributes that come in and help us. I have always been a huge propagator of multiple levels of extracurricular activities. But if you have to connect these two, to say that, does an intangible element like extracurriculars shape the life of an individual while he or she is trying to build a career? And especially if you are trying to build a career in law, where a lot of our audience and viewers might be in that, how does that actually pan out? Has it helped you?
Yes, it's a very, very relevant and interesting question. I'll tell you why. As a lawyer, it's not just you attending classes and appearing for exam. As a student, I'm saying, the participation in the moot courts are mock courts for those who do not know what they are. The participation in the administration, like to become the general secretary, conduct talks, speeches, invite judges, have these kind of asking them to interact with the students, and things like that gives a lot of impetus to you to gain that confidence, to gain that kind of a versatility in everything besides just reading these big fat books. And lastly, and more importantly, I think these things are very important because they give you a different kind of identity of your own. So in my view, or what I studied or what I did, was that I was participating in each and every event, like a simple thing like a table tennis tournament, which was played in our gymkhana, to contesting elections and becoming the ladies representative of the students union, to organizing moot courts. So I'll call you as a judge, I'll tell you, I'll arrange all this, to participate as one of the students, as mock lawyers then, and get those things done. That was fascinating. And also we had something like, which was known as the Social Service League, which dealt with, at a very basic level, and I'm not saying in a very sophisticated, at a very basic level, kind of a legal aid. We are just students of law. We don't know much, but basic legal aid help to people who have no access to good judges, good lawyers, or to good things.
Representation.
So these are the small things that we did. But now that you're asking me this, I'm really reflecting. It has played such a huge role. I never thought about it. And I'm serious when I say this. When you raise this point to me, I really understand that it goes way back. It doesn't start when I stood in the court for the first time, arguing. So I think that all helps you. Also, what helped me as a lawyer, I must say, is, and which we can say, is because I started teaching law. So when I started teaching law, first constitutional law, then I started teaching statutory laws of marriages and divorce. Then I taught commercial law in the university for the postgraduate students. That also helped me a lot. Because you have students which are 40, 50. You're on the dais, you're on a platform. You have to talk for 1 hour and you have to teach.
And curious minds, they'll ask you questions.
And there are questions. And then to speak for 1 hour, you have to prepare for 3 hours. And, things like that. So that sense of studying, homework, if I may call it in simple words, and then presenting to the students, and all kinds of questions coming. And not that you are so well versed that you can answer all questions. There are some questions which you don't have an answer. It could be some out of the box, or you may have no knowledge about it. Then either admitting or saying, we'll discuss this later. I'll come back, I'll go through it, and doing it was very, very challenging, but a very, very invigorating experience also.
And calibrates you. Calibrates you to a great extent.
It does.
You said something very interesting about when you started your law practice. So now I'm going to hook this to a very interesting essence of entrepreneurship. I believe a lot of us, even though we are professionals, but we are in essence truly an entrepreneur. Why? Because unlike a lot of people at your end where they would have gone and joined established chambers, done through the gestation period, perhaps drawn some good salaries over a point of time, You took the hard path out to say that I'm going to go across and start my practice. To a great extent, that practice is like a stepping stone of doing and creating things on your own. Very similar and akin to entrepreneurship, where you move out of the realm of an umbrella to say, I want to create something of my own. It's the hard path, it's the less walked path. Currently, perhaps far more celebrated path because of social media. But in reality, for every successful entrepreneur, perhaps there are 1,000 failed ones. Take us through that mindset to say, why did you decide to start? What called you on to say, I'll start my practice. I'm not going to go and spend time and years with under someone, but let me try and see to do something on my own. The key connecting point between these two aspects is, where does one, as a viewer, if they have to go through this mindset to say that I'm in this, conundrum, that should I work somewhere or should I start on my own? Should I gather some experience or should I go across and face the currents straight away? How does one decide? Where does that calling come to say that you have it in you to be an entrepreneur versus perhaps no, it's not that easy? Take us through that journey of yours.
So yeah, it's very, to look at it from that point of view, after I completed my law, practicing law was the only option. There could have been that I could have done my master's in law, studying, continue the study, or do say a thesis and do PhD or something. But I was more driven to be on my feet in the court and doing such thing. So like I discussed with my father, and then, so to answer your question, when do you start? But you do need to have a training. And for that training, as lawyers, we do need to do as juniors, work in the chambers of a senior or work in a law firm for whatever kind of work which is there. So I started my practice as a junior lawyer with just a degree in hand and no experience and completely raw, with the then Advocate General of Maharashtra, Mr. Bobde, who was the father of Justice Bobde, who was the ex-Chief Justice of India, and started working in his chambers as a raw junior, not knowing anything. He just leaving 3-4 books on the table, read this, do this research, let me know by the end of the day. Oh my God, how do I do it? I have nothing to do. But no, I have to, because by end of the day, he wants me to give a note about it. So that was one part of it. Interestingly, during those days, we were doing a very interesting case of the Antule cement scandal that had rocked the Maharashtra Assembly. There was Indira Gandhi Pratibha Pratishtan, and there were charges of corruption against the then Chief Minister. And we were defending him because we were the Advocate General. So during that time, and I must say that was such a learning experience, absolutely raw junior. We had all the senior counsels who were engaged by the government of Maharashtra, by the then Chief Minister, and we used to attend those conferences. So we were sitting like how this little girl is sitting there, who was just sitting there and just watching and say, oh wow, talks so well, he knows so much. When will I ever achieve that kind of an excellence, or go anywhere close to that? Or learn from the persons, how they talk, how they ask questions, how they take notes. So I feel that a legal profession is a constantly learning profession. But to answer your question, where did I take a call that, okay, now I need to be on my own? That comes a little later, because my, journey as a lawyer is a little...
broken in tranches.
Yes.
And a 16-year-old sabbatical.
Yes. And so once I started doing it, I was just getting into the groove of it. And my senior used to ask me to go and appear in courts and do that, and that kind of stuff will happen. Then we realized that now I got married and I conceived, and my first pregnancy was not so normal. So the doctor said, no, you can't, now you have to be at home. So since then, I took a sabbatical for 15, 16 and devoted myself completely to my children. 2 children, 1 boy, 1 girl. They are both now counsels and lawyers. But during that period, I was a restless lawyer or a law student. So I did my master's in law, because then I did my LLM. And then I took up, I can't be sitting at home. I want to do for my kids. Of course I want to do. But I want to do something. So I started teaching. That's when I taught in the KC College. I taught constitutional law, and the university I used to teach for the postgraduate student, just to keep that equilibrium. Once I realized that my kids are going to a regular school, like they leave at 8:30 and come back by 4, so I'm a lot of time on hand. I said I want to do something and I'm not going to be sitting at home now. And that's when I first time entered the family court. And I said, now let me try and let me see if I can do something here, because we were living in Bandra at that point of time. And to be very honest, that was very convenient for me because I knew if my kids came around, I was always there, just close by. And initial period, as you know, Vinayak, where do you get cases? You don't. That's a struggle. You have to really, really sort of, it takes time to prove yourself. So that is the struggle period that I sort of experienced at that point of time.
I want to ask you a sensitive question, little off topic. 16 years of sabbatical.
Yes.
A lot of women go through this.
Yes.
A lot of women go through this in terms of the mother's guilt, the mother's duty, the fact that at the end of the day, as a mother, you're supposed to only focus on your children growing up. And then comes a day when the bird leaves the nest. And then as a woman, you realize that so much time has gone by and you've not been able to do anything for yourself. You rose like a phoenix even after 16 years of a sabbatical. To a great extent, and a fantastic example for a lot of women who might be right now in that mindset saying that is that fair on them versus is it fair on the children? And this is a guilt perhaps that men don't face so much. Perhaps they don't even have the empathy to understand it. If I had to ask you this question, given that you've actually seen the crests and troughs of this, is it fair to take a sabbatical in hindsight and give everything for your child? Because not everyone can bounce back and create what you've been creating. Or is it perhaps as a woman your advice to a lot of viewers who are women to try and see in which way can one balance things out? Because at the end of the day, when you are alone with yourself, the only person that you have to answer to is yourself and no one else. So what's your thought on that? What's your take on that?
It's a very interesting thing for working women. Yes, a guilt of a mother, however she may be, is always there. When I took a call because that's what the call of my heart was. Believe you me, nobody asked me that you should stop working. Nobody told me that you take care of your children. There's sometimes some families where they'll say, why are you working? We can take care of you. You take care of your child. Yeah, social pressure, family pressures, etc. It was my call. And that was a call that I had taken because I wanted to be with my children. And I wanted to, even if it meant, I don't want to use the word sacrifice, it's too big and too lofty a word to be used by a mother for her children or towards her motherhood and her child upbringing. But I never ever felt, never, and this is God's truth, that I'd sacrificed anything for her. I always felt I'm doing something which is so, sorry, I'm getting emotional. I always felt something, this is what I want to do. I want to do it for my kids because they do mean a world to me. So I took a call. Maybe God was kind. He gave me the opportunity of coming back into the profession and holding my hand during my struggle period. That's the way I would like to put it.
So let's connect this now. A lot of our viewers may actually be in a zone in that position that they're contemplating a comeback after a sabbatical. How difficult is it?
Very.
How does one manage that?
If I can give you my example rather than just giving generalized thing, very difficult. You don't even know how to make a recipe for adjournment, which is like even nowadays law interns do it. It's just like a blank paper. And I had no senior when I entered the family court. And I would just go attend this court, attend that argument, sit in the bar room, sometimes overhear some people. You have no work, literally no work. And then when we had something and somebody would come and say, "Ki madam, ye thoda humko karke dena." So we say, "Ha, sure. Not for money, but to be able to work on that." Started with those things. So the struggle is there. The struggle is absolutely which is, I mean, which nobody knows you,
Yeah.
and then you have to create a situation where they start trusting you. Just look at it. Nobody knows you, but and the kind of work that I was doing, people have to have trust in that. No? They have to faith and believe that this person, this lawyer, can help me go through the path of whatever, whether it's for the man or for the woman. So yes, it was difficult to convince your own clients that you can do that. Forget the judges and all. And it meant a lot of hard work. It meant a lot of reading. It meant a lot of drafting. It meant a lot of contemplating on what you have to do and so on and so forth. Yes, struggle.
Is massive. But you've always been a large propagator of the fact that work gets you work. And you've always said that word of mouth is perhaps the largest asset that an individual can have. How does one, in today's world, everything is about self-glory. A lot of it is about self-promotion. So many people go out and just tom-tom about what they do without actually doing it.
Seriously.
How does one, balance that principle out? For a lot of our viewers who might get swayed with so many people in social media preaching and talking about so many things, how do you stay so true to that core of saying that as long as you do good work, work will always get you work?
So I say that because that's what happened to me. So I'm not going to say that otherwise. It is a word of mouth. It is like when you are standing in a court of law and say you're arguing for 5 minutes. There's one particular case you're doing. There's somebody who's random, either client or some dude, and they watch you and they see, oh, the judge is listening to this lady with, intently, or she's putting it across properly, or she's very effective. Then they say, that's what we saw someone, and then the other client comes. And then it just goes on. And then your word goes from individual clients to solicitors or law firms, say like what you have. And then somebody comes and tells you, oh, Vinayak, I'm talking with those years back, so and so was there. Quite okay, quite good, nothing, you should try out. Will help out your client also. So that is what has helped me in most of my cases. And largely and more importantly is just the way you are, Vinayak. People may just, you can bring about that confidence, that trust, and that somebody is here not to take you for a ride, or not that our profession has
DNA is everything.
Sorry?
DNA is everything.
DNA, and more importantly, and not that people talk great about our profession, about how.
I think now things are changing.
I hope so, but otherwise it was like, okay, lawyer, I don't know how much to trust, and how things.
Police और वकील से दोस्ती भी नहीं करना चाहिए, दुश्मनी भी नहीं करना चाहिए.
So those kind of things were there, and then also a little bit of a woman in me, a little bit of a mother in me helped me, and the lady clients or the women litigants could relate their things, and I could understand their problem. So that kind of not only empathy but a sense of understanding about what their problems were gave them a lot of comfort. Oh, madam, you understood exactly what I want to say. When a client says that to you, then ma'am, I've understood. You understood exactly what I want to say. That is the first point of comfort that a client is going to have in you. That this lady or this lawyer has understood, and this is what he or she is going to put it in a court of law.
So now tell us something very interesting. You have handled some of the largest and perhaps most high profile divorce cases of this country. We'll go through some of them which you're comfortable to talk about. But a person generally tends to remember that first case, or that first job, or that first assignment in whoever's life, what they do. Like, I still remember the first transaction that I did in my life 25 years ago. Do you have any recollection of that first case that you ever fought? And what teachings did you take from there?
I can never forget my first case. I can never ever forget my case. I'll tell you, it is as simple. I'm just going to give you a little script. I was sitting in the family court, sitting in the bar room, no work, what to do, and just reading something. So there was an old man who came to me, must be in his 60s, 70s, whatever. But he looked much more than his age, with a young girl. And then he heard me talking to someone in Marathi, and he came to me and he said that this is my daughter, and her husband has troubled her and thrown her out of the house, etc. Will you take up the case? In the heart of my hearts, I was very happy. Oh, this is something that has come to me. And then he started talking, and we understood the case. She was a daughter. They didn't have any children, etc. She wanted a settlement. I didn't even know what she was doing. I didn't know what the father was. And then in the course of the discussions, it happened that he was a cobbler at Dadar under the bridge, and that was his daughter who had a matrimonial issue, and he had no idea. He come to the family court, and that's what he came. I conducted that case for nearly 2 years to the best of my ability, limited ability at that point of time, and limited exposure and knowledge, but was able to get for her a decent order. Whatever those maybe those days, they were in thousands, not
Yeah,
like
obviously.
today's time. So whatever it was there, to the satisfaction, to the larger part of satisfaction of the client and this. And all this got done. I felt very good. I felt very happy. And I said, I mean, it's your first achievement.
Of course.
It's like a trophy for you. And I did that for 2 years for a princely sum of rupees 500. I was paid 500 for that 2 years of my work. But I mean, no complaints, nothing. When the matter got over, and I tell this with a lot of pride and with a lot of joy, when the matter got over, etc., the decree came, the lady was given, they paid me 500, matter was over. Then that gentleman came to, I didn't have a chamber of my own, so I used to work from home. So he came in the evening to my home and he said that, can I meet you? So I said, yeah, sure, please come in. Is there something that you need? Because I thought everything was over. So he said, no, I want to give you something. So I said, I mean, what is it? There's some newspaper and there's something like, it was like a newspaper thing. So he said, I want to give you this. So I said, no, thank you. Why is it? He said, just please have a look at it. I opened it. It's a pair of Kolhapuri chappals. And he said, madam, please try. So I said, sure, but I mean, they do look my size. Let me try it on. And while she was sitting, I tried it on. And they fitted perfect. He didn't know what my shoe size was and he didn't know anything. And it was beautifully done. Simple Kolhapuri chappals, but very well done. I asked him, how did you know my size? I mean, thank you so much. And he told me, okay, I have done it myself. And I personally, every stitch that I was taking on that chappal made me realize how grateful I am to you. And I just thought I can give you because that's all that I can give you after all what you have done for me. I said, no, thank you so much, but how did you know my size? That's still a question. And he said, madam, whenever I used to come with my daughter to your so-called office, which was my home, my daughter would talk to you. I would never look up at you. I would only look at your feet. And that's the time I realized that he said, that's my profession, that's my job, and that's what I got it. Today, for me, that's the most priceless gift I've ever had.
True.
That's where I started my journey, and I'm so proud of my first client.
Yeah, these are moments which one never forgets.
Absolutely. They're etched.
But also, unfortunately, this arena of law, this side of law, this practice of law is bad-mouthed also to a great extent. बहुत बार ये भी कहा जाता है कि डिवोर्स लॉयर्स के पास जाओगे तो डिवोर्स होना ही पक्का है. You are known as someone who always has emphasized on the right legal advice to your client as against pleasing a client. Because it's also the most sensitive form of law because it's personal. It has ramifications on an individual's life, it has ramifications on children, wealth, a lot of things. But a lot of times a client may come to you to hear things he or she may want as against actually what the position is. How do you balance this out? Have you ever faced backlash, or do you remember any backlash of a client where it was not about pleasing the client but actually telling out the law the way it is or the situation the way it is? How do you balance expectations in such a sensitive practice?
So I have faced this several times. There are clients who come to me, and probably over a period of time, you are able to decipher from what could be a genuine case and what could be an overreaction or a reaction to a situation.
Give an example.
I'll give you. Suppose a lady comes to me and she says, I want a divorce. I mean, you start by saying, I want a divorce. Okay, I mean, let me know what the thing is. I can't live with that man. He's terrible, whatever, XYZ. Okay. So then we say, fine, can we start talking? Then she starts talking and she realizes, and she starts narrating stuff like that. And at every point of time, then if you say that, Yeah, you're saying that this is what he did. How did you respond? I mean, were you very calm? No, where was I calm? I also bashed him up. Example, I'm just
Yeah,
giving.
yeah, of
I
course.
bashed him up. I said, oh, you also bashed him? Yeah, if he bashes me, I'll bash him up. Or if he threatens to bash me, I can bash him. Okay. Then what happened? Nothing. We just yelled and screamed and shouted at each other. And then after 20 minutes, he told me, please lay the table. I want to have dinner. What did you do? I'm sure you didn't give him the dinner. Now, why will I not give him dinner? I gave him I laid the table and I gave him dinner. I said, why? I mean, he's my husband. I have to give him dinner. And then nothing. We didn't speak to each other because we were very angry. We had our khana and I cleared everything. I went and I was watching movie. Then what happened the next day? Next day, nothing. I said, did you all discuss about it? No, we didn't. Then why do you want to come today for the divorce? Why do I want to come? Exactly, I'm telling you. Why did I come today to meet you? But you know how he is. This is how the way he talks. He abuses me. I said, yes. I said, is there something that y'all can think you can go to some professional and find out what it is? No, we never thought about it. Some elderly person you don't have to go to a professional. You can go to a common friend, anybody with it. So this is the kind of conversation that happened, Vinayak. And I gave her a name of a couple of professional counselors who were there, where her husband was not willing initially, but she convinced him and they went. And then they realized that this was a storm in a teacup. And it was nothing but an overreaction on the part of the wife to come to a lawyer to get these things done. I had a couple of meetings with that gentleman also. As you know, as a lawyer, you cannot see the other party in the absence of his lawyer.
True.
You know, we can have it for
Of
the
course.
meeting or anybody. I made that thing very clear to them. That listen, I am her lawyer, but right now I just want to don a robe of a mediator to try and see if he can resolve something. Are you okay with it? You have a right to legal representation. You can bring any lawyer, anybody that you want. So he said, no, ma'am, I want to do this. And we spoke and we were able to resolve this. So yes, over a period of time, as a professional, hardcore lawyer, where you are very, sort of supposed to be very aggressive and very formidable in a court of law, you do become a shrink because you deal with so many relationships.
Yeah.
And then you are able to decipher from what could be a genuine case and what is not a genuine
Or more of an overreaction.
and what is an overreaction, and should every overreaction result in a divorce? Answer is no. See, the term divorce attorney, it connotes, I don't know, for different people, different thing. But we as lawyers are not here to break homes. We as lawyers are there, and I'll tell you how we operate on this. First option, reconciliation. Step one, can I bring about a reconciliation between these two parties? Not happening? Sorry. Can I do this divorce by mutual consent without accusations, litigation, etc.? Not happening? Then we go to litigation.
Yeah.
So these are the stepping stones. If you follow them, then you don't destroy families.
True.
And any law where lawyers, and I'm talking about my fraternity, who ill-advise and want to abuse the law and destroy the families, that's the abuse of law, which even now the Supreme Courts are saying. We can talk about it more later.
But given that you've handled some of the most complex cases, what are the biggest misconceptions of this practice? As divorce and divorce law in India, what do you think are the biggest misconceptions that people are dealing with?
You're talking intersay their relationship?
Intersay this entire practice and intersay in terms of the myth of saying that if I go to a divorce lawyer, the whole idea is to break the house.
Yes, that's a very popular belief amongst the litigants, and that is why this is what, as probably as say senior or person in this kind of profession has to deal with it with a lot of compassion and with a lot of mediation should be as one of the options that should be given.
Is that the true success in this profession?
100%.
Why do people don't realize that?
I don't know. And this is such a beautiful question you've asked me, and I would like to canvass it. There is no substitution to mediation. Today, the Supreme Courts, the High Courts, there's a mediation law that is being there. There are trained mediators. There are places where you have pre-litigation mediation.
Yeah.
In fact, I just went last week to Delhi for such a robust pre-litigation mediation they have. None of the parties have problems of their own. One of the parties has gone and told that we want something, and that is called samadhan, the way the mediation center is called. They call the other person. Initially, no lawyers, only the parties. They try and resolve it. Then they bring in lawyers to see if they can do it. So either they can reconcile. And in my experience, wherever I have attended as a lawyer for this pre-litigation mediation, fortunately, I've been, and say with pride, we were able 100% success. And success, I don't mean reconciliation. A couple of them came together, and a few of them went, but by mutual consent, without filing police complaints and
making
filing,
it nasty and
yes,
murky.
yes, and all that crass kind of stuff that
I
happens.
come to your chamber today from a mediation where I played the role of a mediator.
Oh, amazing!
That's why I was asking you.
Amazing, amazing. Yes, and I think in the kind of law that I am doing, it is the order of the day.
Now, this is a very interesting dichotomy. It takes a lot of maturity and a lot of heart to say that I would rather mediate, reconciliate, and try and get the couple back to where they were, as against typically the proceedings, if it goes through, is where the opportunity in terms of business and money lie for you as a professional. When I say you, any attorney,
I know.
a lot of people don't have the maturity to understand that you'd rather be known as a good human being and a great counsel to be able to go for real, practical, true advice, as against propagating the fact that be a shark, kill that other person, get the pound of flesh and walk out. How does one have that sense of maturity and empathy to say that I will let the money go, I will let the potential business or the business case of the client go, but I would rather stick to my reputation and say that if I can find the solution, then that is my true success?
So to answer your question is a mixed question. It is based on your value systems. It's based on your upbringing and the DNA, as you used that word earlier. What have you grown with, and on what surroundings have you grown with?
And this was like this from day one for you?
Yes.
Because a lot of people may also say, oh, Mrunalini today can afford to say that because she is the queen.
No, not because I am now established myself in this field. This was there right from the beginning. And this has been my way of looking at it. Because I don't want fights. I don't want wars. Not because I'm not able to do that. But because, is that a solution in a family matter? Does it really, is that anybody wins? Do you really, you've got a divorce and you've got this, have you won? Or have you lost everything? Or we sit down together with you, you're the other side and there's a client of yours, we sit down together and try and carve out what is the best possible thing for the couple, for the children, and for everything which is there, so that when they go back, there's less hurt. I would not say zero, less hurt, less pain, and some satisfaction that, okay,
it could have been done in a decent manner.
And no, I'm happy it got done. In fact, I had some clients, Vinayak, who would just come and say, yeah, we want to, okay, whatever my profile may be, this thing. Oh, ma'am, you're giving such a sage advice. And we've heard your reputation otherwise. And I'm so glad you came here. So I said, this is no sage advice. This is only based on a little bit of my experience, which I've seen. Because no case which you win, even in the Supreme Court, is 100% win for either of the parties.
It's like a deal. I keep saying this in my practice. A true deal is never a one-sided deal. It has to be give some, take some to make a true deal happen.
Absolutely. And the essence of it is to reduce the acrimony and the animosity between the parties. Once you're able to do that by using your good offices, by using whatever your personality is, that really gives you a long-lasting satisfaction. I always believe you can't build homes on somebody's graves.
True.
What can I
Beyond the point, you are going to get spooked out.
Yeah, no, not even otherwise. What about my satisfaction? At least one can go to sleep at rest that I have done what is to the best of my ability. I may have faltered. 100 times I've faltered. I'm not saying no. My calculations may have gone wrong. Assessments may have gone wrong. But I'm human. I can always. But why should I go away from the path which I choose? Which is to try and see if that can be done in a peaceful, graceful and dignified manner.
That's so true and so real. Is the mindset similar with clients as well? So when I ask this with a little bit more depth. You're known to have represented some of the biggest celebrities, politicians, very high profile people as well. And we've seen this, right? In my practice as well, I've had the blessing, if I may say so, to represent some very high profile clients who have a very different mindset compared to someone who's just starting up. When you look at these high profile people coming with such complex situations, what are some of those most unique challenges that you've come across while representing such clients? Take us through, and for the benefit of our viewers, the mindset of the client. Does it change in terms of the stature, the pedigree, the stake, what is on the table, what could have been lost, versus is it more of a philosophy to say, the easier it's done and the quicker it's done, the better it is, like a surgery? Give us some examples of some very unique challenges.
So I'll tell you, of course, on no name basis, the challenge, the approach, or let's take socially known people, the way you are talking about them. So when they come with a profile, correct? They have their own profile where they come with. They have their own sort of, I know what I want and I want to do this. And when they come to a lawyer to find out what the situation is, or what are the options, or what are the laws, or what is the way forward, if there is an advice which is given, which is the same manner that we were talking about earlier, which is balanced, I would say to a large extent equitable in that sense of the word, and with a less amount of this, they lap it. They do not want to go to courts. They do not want to have, because they are very image conscious. I'll tell you one of the things that is there, and the first thing all these celebs ask because nowadays we don't have to go to courts because now we have the e-filing. But earlier the parties have to go to, the litigants had to go to court, personally go to court, sign on that register, stand in front of the judge and do all those things. So they would always say that, okay, we have to go tomorrow. Fine. They are not worried about the crowd. They're worried about the media.
Yeah.
Mrunalini, can you ensure no media is there? So, that is a fear that they have. So they have their own profiles and they don't want such personal matters to be discussed in this. So this is one part of it. So fortunately for me, except for a couple of matters which we can talk about it, have been done by mutual consent. And the reason for doing by mutual consent is only because of the profile of the parties, who do not want to go and appear in courts on every date, stand there and say X against somebody and Y against somebody. So they want to do it. Then they have these meetings, and because they come from a particular background, that they have their own chartered accountants, or they have their own legal consultants who are doing their contractual the work, etc. And all these people are there to advise and kind of do. And we do it in a amicable manner. So from the socially known people, which some of the names are there on the social media platforms, I would say 80% were done by mutual consent, without knowing what the real cause was. They do want to maintain that privacy. Suppose I'm an actor and my wife is having an affair, and that's why I want a divorce. It's just a very, very random example I'm giving you.
Could be very true. You're just keeping it away. It's okay.
I don't know. So my wife is having an affair, and so I want to go for a divorce. So he doesn't want to tell me that his wife is having an affair. He doesn't. He just says, I want to have an affair. I can't get along with her. And maybe if it gets into a contested one, as you know, if it's mutual consent, I don't need to know. Why do I need to know? I don't need to know what your private life is. If you say, okay, me and my wife have agreed, and you just help us draw up the terms and things, that's fair enough. But if I have to go into and make a contested one, then I need to ask all those things. That's when it comes out. So most of them want to maintain that privacy. Most of them want to maintain that profile, whatever may have been in the social media. That's point number one. Point number two that I see amongst them is that they do want to do it amicably, and they do want to do it in a graceful manner. But there were a couple of matters which were there, and they really, we had to go through a lot of allegation, counter allegation, lower court, FAB, Supreme, come back, come do this.
Did it involve the latest high profile one as well?
Some of them.
I love the way you're trying to avoid the name.
No, I'm not. I don't
I'm pulling your leg. I will never ask you the name.
I know. No, I don't want to do that, because also that's one of the reasons that they trust that this is not going to go to the media.
Of course.
Unlike some other people from our fraternity, where the next call goes to the media agency and says, hello, do you know what's happening? So and so is with us, and so and so is doing so. That's a short-term publicity. I'll tell you, Vinayak, that doesn't help you.
At all. At all.
It doesn't. It's your work. It's you, what you are, your honesty and sincerity to the profession and to the litigant, and your honest advice to him or her that, buddy, this is the way to resolve it. This is my view. You may take 10 other views. There may be lawyers who will say, what are you saying? This is not the way to fight it out. You have to prove the person is a rascal, the person has done this, etc. And then you have that last laugh. Why should you take this? So that is where the balance has to be struck between not compromising on what is the right thing for your client and without going down that route of yelling and screaming and getting those things out.
There's another very contrarian view where people also say that while initially marital laws, given the patriarchal society that we belong to, has always been in the intent of protecting women, but also as a result has created loopholes where a lot of women take huge advantage of the same. In fact, Domestic Violence Act as such has been abused thoroughly to look at arm twisting tactics to get much larger sums of alimonies, better terms of settlement, because it includes everyone, the spouse, the parents, the whole shenanigans around that. What's your take as a woman on that? Because I'm sure a lot of times women want to take that advantage as well. What's your view of how this actually has been abused by women? And what's your advice to a lot of men in terms of how the law here should be looked at?
It's the reality of the day that the laws have been abused. But you have to understand, Vinayak, one thing. Does that mean we don't have laws? Does that mean that there should be no legislation which is going to empower women or protect women or give them the security or whatever their rights are? When a woman invokes, because you're talking about the abuse of the law, when a woman is advised, and I don't even want to use the word invokes, when a woman is advised to invoke that provision which will give her justice vis-a-vis that provision which will destroy the other person, that is the difference that you have to see. Any advice given to destroy the other person or the family or whatever it is the abuse of law. But the use of law to get justice and what is fair to you is the proper use. Now, you have seen that as the law has evolved, that there were a lot of changes that were brought about in the IPC, which is now the BLS, which is the Section 498A, cruelty to the women by the husband, the dowry laws, and all such related provisions which were there part of the criminal law. In 2006, the Domestic Violence Act, the Protection of Women for the Domestic Violence Act came up, and that is where also has been used. Absolutely great provisions, much needed, much required to give that real justice to the woman also, but to a large extent, by some section of the society, completely abused. And I don't know whether this is the right way to say, but the haves have abused it than the have-nots. And the haves have abused it because they want to make a better this. And the have-nots have still remained at that position where they have no access to it, or they are okay, they want peace and they want to move on. And this is where the abuse has happened. Point number one. And I think we should also blame some of the people from our fraternity. Because a person comes to you, you are a lawyer, and there's a woman who comes to you. She's completely shattered, emotionally, in every which way. And she comes to you, Vinayak, please tell me, you're my savior, what do? I just want to get out of this and I want to have some kind of a thing. What is the advice you give her? Vis-a-vis what is the advice I give her is what is going to shape the use or the abuse of the law. But there are also certain people who are so well versed, and thanks to all these Google legal laws, lawyers and things like that which are there, they come and tell you, hey madam, why can't we file 498A? We can get him arrested. I said, really? We can get him arrested, we can get his parents arrested, and we can do so many things. Then he'll come around and he'll make the money. So then they also have this knowledge which is from the common platform, which is where you have to step in and you have to tell them what it is. So abuse is happening. Abuse has to be stopped. As a lawyer, that the Supreme Court has come absolutely heavily on some cases where the judges have said in open courts that the laws which are meant for the empowerment and to give safety and security to the women, why even these laws, even the sexual harassment at workplace, Those laws have also been done because women were exposed to a lot of sexual harassment at workplace, whether it was mental, physical, etc. So all these laws are much needed, are much required. But if you misuse them, then they lose their flavor
And the
and they lose
relevance.
their sanctity. And then people are saying, "Arey, complain kar diya, kuch nahi hai." There's no substance in that. So that you should not trivialize the law. My thing as a lawyer, don't trivialize the law, the provisions of law, because a lot of thought has gone into it, a lot of wisdom has gone into it in drafting that for the real women. But if you are going to use it in that manner, you're doing disservice to the women who really
Really need it.
need to have this. This is what I feel about these abuse of laws.
Very deep. So इसको अभी थोड़ा सिंपल करते हैं हम लोग. हाँ, let's for the benefit of our viewers, we're going to ask some simple questions. Let's go down to the basic. झगड़ा हो गया पति पत्नी में. Now they are like, boss, we can't stay together. When the first mindset comes to say that, yeah, I need a divorce. Let's start from that. When that mindset comes, what is your advice in terms of the steps to follow through for a person, be it the husband, be it the wife, irrespective of the gender? If you are asking for a divorce, what are those few key aspects of checklist that one should bear in mind to ensure that these are followed through before you go down that path?
So it all depends on who is the client, whether it's the husband or the wife.
Give both perspectives.
Yeah, I'll give both perspectives, surely. So the point is that if a husband comes and he says that I'm married for so many. Firstly, we want to see, first thing we ask, when were you married and when were you separated? And then generally, what are the reasons for it? There are cases which you'll be surprised to know, Vinayak, that I have cases which have come within 2 months of marriage. There are cases where people have come directly after their honeymoon to me. And this really, it's really, just don't know what to say to such people. They've not even tasted what married life is. They've not even walked down that path and what the whole situation is. So in cases like this, obviously we have to tell them that A, there's a legal impediment. You cannot get divorced, at least for a period of 1 year.
Yeah.
And in this 1 year period, try see if you can sort it out. Some of them come and say that no. There could be reasons like non-consummation, which probably both the parties don't want to do it. Or there could be reasons where within a month of marriage or so, there has been violence, as you rightly said. It could be physical violence, it could be any kind of things which are. And these are the various issues. So when you tell them that there's no, but we can't live together, we want a divorce. Yes, but the court is not going to grant you. You need to have 1 year waiting period. What is it? How can you use that waiting period? There are 2 ways you can use it. Number one, you see if you can work on it and sort out the issue, because in any case you have time. Or if you feel that tomorrow things may get ugly and things like that, drop a contract, drop an MOU, which has more of a moral and social binding with both the parties, and that we will go for the divorce if it comes to it. So this is what you say. And what are the terms and conditions that, if the woman is working, not working, what do you want to take care? If after, say, and I'm coming and I'm going in stages, say people come to you after 5 months, 5 years of marriage or 10 years of marriage, there's a child involved. So the first question is that you're talking about divorce. Have you thought about a child? Have you thought of what it is going to be? So we have to sit down and explain to them that what are the sequence of things that can happen and how the child could be dragged into it. At every stage, and I repeat this, the attempt is to see that, just knock little sense that really do you want to go down that path or do you want to get these things done? Now, if a woman comes that I have done enough and I just want to now leave the house, I have decided I can't live with this man and I have a child, can you tell me what are the things that I should do? So the first advice that we give her is get your jewelry. Wherever it is, collect your jewelry. Collect all your personal documents, maybe it's bank statements, maybe your identifications, etc., etc. LIC policies, get hold of all those things. Thirdly, never leave without a child, especially when the child is a young one. Because for a mother to leave the child behind, it's a great struggle to get the custody back. Don't leave without the child. And lastly, and more importantly, all the documents which are regarding the child. These are the 5 things that 5 or 6 things that you need to keep and take it with you when you decide to leave the house. There's some people who ask, should I file a police complaint before I leave? Not in every case you need to file a police complaint, because you only need to file a police complaint if there has been violence, or there has been harassment, there's been physical thing, etc. Then you need to, because then you have the police machinery getting activated to come on to fore. But if there is a civil dispute, and or in the sense a dispute which has taken place and you've decided that you want to do that, there is no need to file a police complaint. And then once you come back, you have to sort out how do you get it. As far as the man is concerned, if he comes for a divorce and he says, what are the things? So then we have to ask that, what is the reason for you to ask for divorce? If he says she's nagging and she's got rage issues and she's a very intolerant person and I'm facing this for years on end, the first question we ask is, I believe every word you're saying. But if I were a judge, I would ask you for evidence. So what is the evidence that you would have in the event? What you've said right now needs to be argued before a judge to be able to get that. And there was a lot of mental agony and grief that you had because of these kind of situations that are there. So just to do this, we always ask clients to write down their life history. So what I've done is, we have some kind of a questionnaire. So how does the litigant says, the first question every litigant asks me, where do I begin? How do I start? What do I tell you? So then we start this conversation. Then you say, you don't have to start. First, let me start the conversation. When were you married? Was it an arrangement? Then you get into the flow, and then they are able to tell all those things. And lastly, and more importantly, I think it's just hearing them out and advising them that if this is what you want to do, let's see the path of least resistance as the first option.
You mentioned a very interesting thing about evidence. Now, it's not a natural consequence, because a lot of times these kind of issues are on day-to-day lives of people as couples. अब कोई सोच के नहीं रखता कि I have to have a camera, I have to record it, I have to have a mic. So natural progression of day-to-day stigma, day-to-day intolerance, day-to-day trauma, how does one go into the planning of even creating these kind of evidence?
Absolutely. And that is exactly what the challenge is for the litigants and for the courts to decide, because it's your word against the other person's word. And you are absolutely right. In a home, you're not going to have any detectives that somebody is having an affair, or you're not going to have any cameras which are hidden cameras, which nowadays, of course, a lot of people do it because, your experience teaches you how to be a little more sort of, alert and things like that. So it will have to be like any evidence, as you know, Vinayak. It is based on documents and it is based on witnesses. So if there are certain things which have happened in the presence of even of a maid servant who's in the house, or a driver when you're sitting in the car, or any of those things, we can use them as witnesses to corroborate what an incident may have happened on a particular day. So this is all that we can do. Also, in court of law, and a little technical I'm getting here only for the understanding, it is not beyond reasonable doubt like in a criminal case. It's based on preponderance of probabilities. What could be a probable situation, or what could be a probable result of a particular situation, is what the courts have an overall view, and they understand that. They all know that there cannot be any direct eyewitnesses, that there cannot be any evidence in terms of camera, video, etc. But today, with the ease of this, people are able to do that. You instigate me and you start screaming, I just take this camera and my phone and I start, okay, say what you want to say and record it. So sometimes you either stop it because it's being recorded, or you go ahead and then it gets recorded. But these are very few instances. And lastly, and more importantly, the courts do understand that this is not one incident, two incident, but an overall journey of, say, whatever years, and a few of these instances which highlight, which they. So now, for example, if there is a physical violence that takes place in a particular home, are you telling me that the couple is not going to have in physical intimacy after 2-3 days? Quite a few of them do have. Now, what is the answer to this? I mean, you've had an episode of violence, you feared your life, or you feared the safety of your well-being, but then that's what marriages are all about.
Is there a sense of duty?
No.
Does the woman go back? Let's assume for a second that chances are higher as a probability that the man beats the woman up, and after some days you're back to trying to again get back to normalcy. and therefore physical intimacy. Is it a sense of duty in your experience that the woman says, I'm trying to salvage my marriage and therefore I'm duty bound to do that? Or is it coming to terms to say that this is how it's supposed to be because perhaps at the end of the day he's a husband, he did it? Or the third, which is a very, very, sad state of fact which I have seen with a lot of other clients, is for the sake of the child. And if you have a young child, even if you got beaten up, you still go back to that whole context to say that for the sake of my child, let me keep things in some way in order. What's been your experience?
So my experience in most of these women who are faced in face these kind of situations, the reasons for them to get back to normalcy, or I would not call it normalcy completely, but limping back to that normalcy, is the uncertainty of the future, because they do not know what is ahead of them, and they don't want to topple the apple cart, much as they know that they have been at a receiving end and much as they know that they have to do it.
Is there more for non-working women? Because working women will not have a fear of financial independence. But there are lots of instances of even working women where they have got physically abused, but are still back to getting physically intimate with their partner. How does one as a woman come to term with that? How have you seen that in your experience? What's been the reason for normalcy to come back?
So,
is it a compromise, or is it just as a natural course of progression?
I don't know. I'll give you an example to answer this question. There was this case that came to me just last week. A very young, attractive girl, corporate girl, working in a corporate sector, earning a decent amount of money, gets married to this man who is also, doing exceedingly well for himself and for the family. 2 years of marriage, there is violence in terms of physical violence. I mean, not in an extreme manner, but twisting of the hands and things like that, and things to that extent. The woman leaves the house, and she leaves the house, and she's staying with her sister or something. Then he calls her up, and he says, or she calls him up, whatever, I don't know the sequence, and they meet for dinner. They meet at a hotel, and she's out of the house. Understand one thing, there's been violence, there's been whatever, and she's out of the house, she's left the house. He's told her, just get the hell out of this place. But he himself calls up after the next week, and he does that and says, let's go for dinner. This girl says yes. And we're not talking about somebody who's coming from a small place. She's heading a branch of a very big corporate firm. And okay, it's all right, your husband and wife, you can have dinner. And then he doesn't ask her to come back home, but he says, let's book a room in the hotel, and they spend the night in the hotel. And I was stunned, and I asked her that, didn't you leave the house because you were bashed up and you didn't want to go because he has a name and a profile and she has a name and a profile, may not be celebs, but they have their own identity in the corporate world. Why did you do that? She said, I don't know. Now, this is a question I asked her. I said, I can understand having dinner also, because you want to talk it out, you want to do it. Why did you agree when he suggested? She's a very attractive girl. So why did you agree when he suggested that let's spend the night here, when he didn't take you back home, which was, say, 5 kilometers away from there, and he chose to book a room in the same hotel where you were having dinner, and you went, you spent the night, you had breakfast, and next day you went to work and he went to work, and the fourth day you are coming here to me? How do you explain this? She said, I have no answer. I said, what is it which is so compelling for you? And I want to know from you as a woman, that when you've been at a receiving end, this is what is done. Yes, but we have a very intense relationship. It's a very intense relationship, Mrunalini, which I'm not able to articulate for you in words. Yes, there is a lot of anger and hurt in me that how dare he do that to me. But the intensity of the relationship overpowered my hurt and what my pain was. Now, I have no answers, Vinayak. Why does this happen? And this I'm talking about some lady who came to me a couple of weeks back, or even less than that. So what is it that keeps the woman going back with the same person? who, let us say, is an abuser, and every abuser is not a physical abuser.
Of course.
Somebody is going to doubt your character every time. Oh, you dressed up well. Oh, so you're going with a boyfriend. Oh, you're traveling. So which means you have somebody who is there who's waiting for you in Delhi or waiting for you in Madras or in wherever, and you are planning. And every time, oh, you dressed up so well. Okay, looks like you're doing it. You know, every day running down a woman about her character, making these aspersions, making her feel very worthless and small. And how can a woman live in that situation day in and day out? And some of the women who've answered, I've put this question to them, some of the women have said that, yes, it is, but I just ignore and I just move on. And he goes every day, says the same thing. I believe someday he'll stop saying that. Now, is it fait accompli? Is it just giving up on what you otherwise are a very smart, savvy person who wants to do that? Or is it or is that structure of marriage which gives you security, and that, okay, I'm a married woman, despite whether you're earning or you're not earning, is what keeps you going in this. And in some cases, as you rightly said, it could be a child. But taking this discussion a little forward, quite a few people ask me that, is it better for us to live together for the sake of a child? Or, though it's a toxic relationship or a very acrimonious relationship, but for the sake of the child? Or is it better to have separate and do that? My answer is, let there be two happy homes for the child. Do not expose the child to that one toxic thing, because a normal standard way, what would the elderly, like grandparents or some chacha, mama, etc. say? No, just adjust it. You have a kid, come on, look at the kid. But they are not realizing that the kid is seeing this acrimony and this kind of thing day in and day out. I mean, what a damage you are doing to that guy or the boy or the girl, whoever is the child. And then that's where then these children need counseling, they need some kind of a thing, because they don't know how to deal with it.
True.
There may not be instances where every child is witnessing physical violence. There are cases where they are, but there are cases where the children are also witnessing these kind of things which are done by either which ways. Or if there's an affair in a marriage, then those kind of accusations, etc. The child is being exposed to all this. So it's better to be away and not expose the child to this, rather than be in a marriage, so-called facade of a marriage, and I want to use that word, only for the sake of the child. I don't think you're doing any service to him, maybe disservice, if not otherwise.
You mentioned something very important, which is, I think, one of the most important angles or aspects when a marriage moves down to the path of a divorce, which is the child. Again, in a simplistic manner, for the benefit of our viewers, how does one structure child custody? Again, things are different when it's a man or a woman, the father or the mother. But if you had to advise, and when you look at the next important thing is about the child and the custody, what should one think about? A, what is child custody? B, how does one go about it? What are visitation rights? What are abilities to go across and spend time over a particular point of time? How does one structure all of it?
So the cardinal thing that one has to remember in custody matters is the child needs both the parents. In 9 out of 10 cases where the children have been asked, and the courts never asked them, so let me make it very clear to all your viewers here, that the courts never ever asked a child whether you want to be with a father or your mother. That is disservice to the child. But if you just generally ask a child that, without me, then who would you like to be, with your mother or your father? The instant answer is both. So that is the first answer that every child gives. Unless there are exceptional cases where the child is exposed to physical violence, not on himself, but on his mother or his father, what the case may be, or is exposed to a case where the father comes home drunk and behaves in a very unruly manner, throwing away things, etc. Or where there is a father who is absolutely a little lost his balance and behaves in a manner, screaming, shouting, and creating a very toxic environment. They want to be with both the children. So in child custody cases, me as a lawyer, and I would like to really state that, I believe that the child belongs, and I'm sure like me there are so many others who believe, that the child belongs to both, and both have an equal right, and the child has an equal right on both his parents, whether it's the father or the mother. But depending on the age of the child and depending on what it is, if the child has to live in a separate home, I mean in a separated home, if I may use that word, maybe the primary care can be with the mother because it's just a natural way of looking at it. But rather than calling, and if you see some of my sort of exchanges that I've had on the media with regards to these questions, whether it's on webinars or things, I always canvass a case of joint legal custody, joint legal guardianship, co-parenting, and joint parenting. So if these three cardinal principles are kept for the child custody in cases which are there, so where the physical care may be with the mother, but all major decisions are taken jointly, all documents are done jointly, passport, visas, renewals, etc., bank accounts, investments, etc., for the benefit of the child are done jointly. God forbid the child has any health related issues, they are taken jointly, whether any medication, any surgery, any treatment which is there. In some cases, there are two different religion people. There may be one and the other, the spiritual and the upbringing and the value systems which have to be inculcated in the child. And last and but not the least, the education and the other co-curricular activities which are required, where both the parents have to be equally involved.
Yes.
There are cases where some mothers say, you pay the money, you do this, but I will not let you, and I'm dealing with that case. I'll not let you see the face of my child, but you are a father. You better pay for his tennis. You better pay for his football. You better pay for his golf, and you better pay for everything. And listen, you've not been a great father. Why should you want to meet the child? The child doesn't want to meet you. It's not about paying. It's not about it. It's about me advising my child not to meet the father.
Yeah.
Am I doing good to that? And that is where there has to be a sense of responsibility when you are having child custody issues. And to a large extent, Vinayak, it is on the advice that the people receive. How to deal with a situation.
True.
Do I see the child's interest above mine? Or do I use the child as a tool of vengeance to get back at you? That is where the advice is. So at every point, I feel when I talk to all these young lawyers, that you may get a quick buck, you may get a quick case, but girl, that is not the way to succeed. Your honest, sincere, and to a large extent a balanced advice is going to get you, is really going to get you where you really want to achieve in the long run, may not be in the immediate short run.
I think a lot of this also synopsizes very well in a very interesting book that you wrote. And, the title itself was quite interesting. I remember having this chat with you once where when you talk about breaking up and you say it's a step-by-step guide to divorce. What prompted you to write this? Was it about the fact that there is so much of murkiness around this subject? The fact that also, unfortunately, there are stakeholders in the profession who have created a fear factor around this subject? Or was it also to go across and say that it's a way of giving back to the ecosystem by making things a little simpler for people to understand that what seems and sounds very painful, if actually dealt with appropriately, can also be amicable and result in something as what you just said recently very beautifully, two beautiful homes filled with happiness where you can still live and be friends forever. What's been the thought behind the book?
So the thought behind it is also big because I found there were a lot of misconceptions. Like I said earlier, the Google knowledge that they had.
Yeah.
So a lot of people who had a lot of misconceptions. And I call it misconceptions because that's not what the truth or reality is. Number two, I also got a lot of queries that a lay person, I don't want a law book like this. I want a person who is very educated, understands everything, but does not have a legal background, but wants to know what happens.
Yeah.
And what is this? What is adultery? For example, in a matrimonial wrong, what is adultery? How is it treated in a matrimonial court? How do the courts do it? At that point of time when I had written the book, the adultery
and especially when it was a ground for divorce.
Yes, not only a ground for divorce, it was also a ground to which the husband had against the adulterer or the paramour,
a criminal
who was
recourse.
The wives. Yeah, he had the recourse to that, but now of course that's no longer true. But all these things which were there, and there was a lot of, what do I say, people wanted to know about all these things. A lot of interest was created, a lot of awareness was there, and there's a lot of inquisitive mind that what does it mean. So that is when these the publishers approached me and said that this is what we have said. Because if you see overseas, there are quite a few books written,
Yeah.
and those who are known as divorce attorneys, etc. What are the laws? Not laws exactly, but what are the social ramifications?
Correct.
What are the do's and
The
the
softer
don'ts and
aspects.
things like that? Yeah, the do's and the don'ts, and what are the things that are available. So they felt that they needed something like this in the Indian context, though they never hoped that India would reach such a situation. That's what they said. But now that we do have these kind of cases, what is it? A book that a person can read. So I have a lot of few clients who buy the book or whatever they are. They read the book and they come to me and say, "Ma'am, you said in that book this, that you said this, that." And what I have done in that book is I have taken my real life cases,
Mhm.
which I have dealt with personally, not just some anecdotal or
Of
some
course.
cases which are there. And I've given that law.
Learnings
What
from
is adultery? What is cruelty? What are the things that you need to do? What are the cases where, there are quite a few cases where I got where, this awareness about same sex was at its lowest.
Yeah.
The people were not coming out. There was this fear of 377 because it was still a criminal
Yes.
offense. There were men and girls and boys who were trapped into this and who could never talk about it. There were families who knew that their children were this, but still got
Could not
them married,
yes.
and they got them married because for the sake of
Social
the society.
Correct.
That okay, because and how do I know this? Because in a couple of matters when I asked the lady that you knew that your son is gay. He has told you, who his gay partner is, etc. When you knew all this, why did you get him married to a girl? I mean, was it right on your part? And there's another case where the girl was told. So she came from a very big business family and she said कि ऐसा थोड़ी होता है कि वो लड़का कुछ भी कहे हो जाता है. और दूसरी बात ये है, she told me, एक बार शादी हो जाती है, डिवोर्स हो जाएगा मालूम था, पर हम समाज को बता सकते हैं उसकी शादी कर ली है, नहीं बनी, and now they're divorced. So they don't mind say, or at those days, they didn't mind.
Yeah.
This is something which that lady told me. They didn't mind saying that my son and my daughter-in-law didn't get along and they divorced, but they found it very distinct to say that no, my son is gay and he cannot. I mean, he cannot get married. Now it has come out. I mean, a lot, to be very honest, with the decriminalization awareness, etc. These issues are not there. But these were the issues which previously were also one of the factors. And I think there's a chapter which we have written in the book which regards to that. And what are the laws in the event one of the partners is, and what is the recourse available.
Very few people also know about, some added spicy moments of your life. One of it is dabbling in a little bit of theatre, dabbling in some kind of cameos, dabbling in some kind of different roles. Take us through that softer element of India's foremost divorce attorney's life.
No. I mean,
how does one dabble in a passion? And what made you go across and do those cameos? I loved it when I saw it. In fact, if you remember, I called you up straight away.
Yes, you did.
So how does these kind of things happen?
No, so these things happen because I happen to know the people who were doing that, and they wanted to, as you said, for the cameos, they wanted someone who fitted the role, and probably they thought, let's have a real life thing rather than an actor doing that kind of a role and doing it.
No wonder you were scolding the actors.
Absolutely. But
I think
so naturally.
Did you scold Nasruddin Shah, if I remember correctly?
No, I scolded Imran Hashmi.
I see.
Because, I mean, I'm telling you, I'm very honest, Vinayak. You can ask the producers and directors also. It was not in the script. And I was supposed to be, the script was that I'm reading out a will and he's doing his part and just being very frivolous about it, very, expecting everything will go to me and saying, let's have sushi and let's have fish and all. And that's when I just see, I'm reading such an important part. I said, let's get serious. And that was not in the script. And that was something which just came out and the director said, it's wonderful. Let's keep it even if it's not there. So I said, I'm sorry. I just lost that a little thing that I am not supposed to say what is beyond the script. But that was just one of the things. And no, it's not more of a passion. There are people who sort of, value you and they just want you to have some things to do with it. I think that's all that I can say.
So what keeps Mrunalini busy other than handling India's most high-profile divorce cases?
what keeps me busy? Number one, time is a little bit of a constraint. But besides that, meeting friends and being with the family and reading and a little bit of, I would say, music. But more importantly, I'm into just meeting lovely people and having coffee with them and
I
chatting with them.
agree.
I'm a very chatty person.
I'm glad that I'm one of your coffee mates.
Yes, of course. No, but that's all that is really takes me, and I really enjoy my time, also my me time, which is there just to sit down, reflect, and think about it, and we're very simple, nothing very
I think me
exotic.
time is one of the most,
Yes,
important and yet underrated aspects.
underrated aspect. Absolutely,
It's so important.
it's just not to do anything itself is me time. I mean, you don't have to
So
do
true.
anything.
So true.
Just laze around, just look around, do
So
what
true.
you want, just
So
stroll around.
And especially given the way our lives are.
Yes, of course, it is.
So this brings us to the penultimate segment of this podcast. And it's called the LifeBoat Shots, which basically is that I will ask you questions. There are no shots here because we are not promoting getting drunk over a podcast.
No, I know.
But to each question, instantly what comes to your mind as an answer. And as honest, as transparent as you always are. Shall we?
Sure.
What is the most unusual item in your house?
Nothing. I mean, really have no
These
answer.
will make you think.
I will have to
These will
think
make you think.
unusual item in my house. Seriously, I don't think so. I don't have an
Do you
answer.
still have those Kolhapuri chappals?
No. No, I don't.
What's your go-to comfort food?
Go to comfort food, dal chawal.
What's the
Maharashtrian way.
true? It's
Varan
varan bhat.
Varan
Varan bhat.
bhat, yes.
Correct. I love it as well. With the ghee.
With the ghee on it.
Oh, too good. What's the most memorable and yet strangest gift you've ever received?
The Kolhapuri chappals?
Very true.
Absolutely. I mean, after that, I've received a lot of gifts,
Yeah.
which were very expensive in terms of their money and their value.
But the
And of
emotional
course-
quotient was highest.
Yeah, because I think that struck a chord. Why do I remember that, which was 20 years back?
True.
And what was it so important? It was my first, and it was the emotion behind it. So yes, it is.
True. What's the worst advice you've ever got?
Which I have ever got.
The worst advice.
You should not have sat at home and wasted your 14, 15 years. Does it not mean that working women don't look after their children? You could have become a high court judge. You could have become a Supreme Court judge. But because of this, you have, and I think that's the worst advice I've got. I have no regrets
Yeah.
what I've done.
What is the most interesting thing about you?
I'm a people's person.
If there was an autobiography written on your life, would you rather have it as a book or a comic book series?
Good one.
With the cape.
No, a book.
A book.
Because there's a lot of
Depth.
depth, there's a lot of intensity, there's a lot of things that are there in the journey. If at all that helps someone, I would rather have it like this, rather than reading it from a as a comic book.
True. What is the most useless talent that you have?
Useless talent.
Useless talent.
I overthink.
Yeah? You think overthinking is a talent?
I mean, I don't know if it's a talent, but that's one of the flaws, that I overthink. Yes, that is one of the things.
What's the quirkiest tradition in your family?
Quirkiest tradition? Quirkiest tradition? Not really anything.
Yeah?
No. Not that I can think of.
If you could ever transform yourself to becoming a sports person,
Yes.
what would it be and why?
Badminton. Because I've been playing badminton at the school and at the state level before marriage. And then after that also. But yes, if I were to go back, I would do definitely.
Wonderful. And finally, another very interesting question. What is that one trend that you could never understand?
Social media.
Yeah?
I'll tell you why.
Tell me why.
I have been raised, maybe old school, I've been raised with the values that you don't talk about your work.
You let
Your
the
work
work talk
talks
about you.
it, or people who are around you. Today, everything is showcasing. Going to Prayagraj to have that holy dip.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm talking about
Yeah,
it.
absolutely.
Is showcasing. To that, I attended a dinner with
XYZ.
a corporate person like him, or I'm in Switzerland. I'm in this. What is all this about? I find it too phony. I find it very fake. It is something that you share with friends. Suppose I went on a holiday and I went to the mountain list, I went to somewhere. I will just share it with you as a family.
Life is not about Instagram.
Why would, today's life has become, I hate it. In fact, I one of the posts, I don't know whether you saw it on the Facebook, it was there, that nowadays going to this, and I'm a devout Hindu, I believe in whatever that is happening at Prayara, but I don't believe in showcasing that. It's your personal thing with your God.
Yeah, keep it personal.
Yes.
In fact, one of the reasons why the entire genesis of this podcast came from the fact that can we have real conversations?
Really?
Can we have true conversations?
And not fake ones and just
not
for the
scripted, structured, outline conversations for the purpose of just clicks and baits and
But you not asked me one question, which I thought you should ask me.
Please.
What would have I done if I was given a choice in not becoming a lawyer? What would you have become?
I would say if you had not become a lawyer. Let me answer that question.
Sorry, I
want to preempt this. I want to preempt this.
Why?
Because of my reading of you and the person that you are and the wonderful person that you are. If you were not a lawyer, what would you be? If you were not a lawyer, knowing how you have always been and how kind and giving and disseminating of knowledge as a person that you have been, either you would have been an extremely successful, academician leading up to maybe a dean of a very large university, or perhaps, given the attachment that you have to grassroots impact and how you like to create grassroots impact, and I know a lot of the philanthropic side of you as well, perhaps you would have dabbled into politics very deeply.
There you go. Exactly. That's exactly what I would like to do. If I wouldn't have become a lawyer and if I had the right opportunity, maybe enough of money and whatever that takes to get into politics, I would have loved to be in politics.
Didn't I read you well?
Spot on. I would love to be in the parliament. I would love to be doing all
For
this.
all you know, in the next 5-6 years, you may be there.
No, I don't know. But I'm
maybe that's what you're preempting in this podcast.
No, not at all. I mean, since we're having such candid conversations, I wanted to tell you that this is something which was still always there. And
that means it's still there.
It is there. I mean, I will be lying if I said no. It's very latent now. It's not announced.
Let's not use latent too much. India's got latent and yet not got latent.
Yes, I know.
But on a factual note, I think it's a calling. Like everything in your life has been a calling, I think that also will be a calling.
As they say,
and when the calling comes, you'll give into it.
I don't know about that.
And you'll create that much of an impact.
I mean, if one had to lead your life all over again and forget all this, what you did for kids and all that stuff, but as in terms of your profession, surely.
Wonderful.
I know it's crazy. It sounds very, I don't know what it sounds, but desires are always there, okay? There are no reasons why you want to do a particular thing. But that's what I feel.
But what do you take of this? How did you find this? You've been on so many shows.
Yes,
You've been on so many,
yes.
Conversations.
No, I really enjoy.
Tell me, what do you find different about this?
Yes, I've done a lot of webinars and I've done all these things, which I find this is a very informal chat over coffee, and I don't mean it in the literal sense of it. It is knowing the person and the work that he or she is doing, and bringing it out in a very, how do I say it, a friendly manner, trying to understand and then build up those questions based on what my answers are. And to also have this kind of a, I would not say message, but this kind of a thing for the public at large to understand, and maybe a little guidance also. For example, there may be some lawyers, there may be some law students, there may be some people who would be watching this. It may help them if I feel,
I'm sure it will.
In that sense, how to deal with these kind of complex, very vitriolic and very...
It will be a lot of people going through, unfortunate incidents in their life.
Yes.
And they would get a lot of learning from you.
They would, and if that is if you're going to achieve that, then I think we've done a great job.
I think so.
And thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I'm
so
honored to be here.
No, I'm so glad we had this conversation. And this was so informal rather than discussing cases and discussing law and the social legal aspects of it. Though we had a mix of all those things. It's not
but I've always been a non-lawyer lawyer. You know that.
Yeah, I know.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I love this.
Such a pleasure.
Such a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I really
appreciate it.
Thank you so much.